Hi, my name is Pamela Singh, and I was born and raised in Mumbai, India. And my parents are from the South. And we moved here about 8 years ago. And I have a 4.5-year-old who has been very recently diagnosed with autism level 3.
So, tell me a bit about how you got involved with Saath, this project.
Okay. So I think about 5 years ago, one of my friends introduced me. He was already a member of Saath back when it was called BDS. So he introduced me to this bunch of people, and they were fun. And I've always wanted to kind of be part of the show, but I did not. Just life got in the way, and I couldn't take part. This was like 1 year when I kind of decided to carve time out for myself and be part of the show. And surprisingly, it is about something that is very close to our heart, so that's interesting as well.
Right. So you said about 5 years ago, you were involved with Saath, or
Yes.
you got introduced with it, and
Yeah.
life got in the way.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the recent diagnosis, parenthood. How did life change?
I think a few years ago, my daughter had a seizure, and then we took her to the hospital. We did whatever needs to be done, got all the tests done, and it turned out to be a fever triggered seizure. I think it's called febrile seizure. And then the summer after that, she had another one. So, after her second seizure, we started noticing that she wasn't hitting her milestones when it came to especially being verbal, like speech and communication in general. So then we kind of spoke to her pediatrician, and surprisingly it was a couple of members in Saath as well who kind of pushed me to try and take her for ECFE classes, which most of the school districts have. So the teachers over there, it's kind of a once a week program in the school. So the teachers over there also noticed, that she does have some difficulty communicating. So they introduced us, or they guided us through the special ed program that the school district has, and that is how we started, kind of got the ball rolling with her. First evaluation was done through the school district, and they said yes, they did note that she had a delay, and they also noted that she had certain traits which could be like that she could have autism. So but at that point we were more worried about her physical health, like we did not want her to have any more seizures. So we were more worried about that, and we didn't want her to push, we didn't want to push her directly into a lot of stuff. And so we first began with school. She started school in about October 2022 with the taught school class for the special ed kids. And then I think maybe 3 or 6 months after that, we started with additional therapy on the side. Like she used to attend speech and occupational therapy and physical therapy, which we have cut down now, but that's what we started with. And she's still attending therapy for speech and occupational. Usually they work with fine motor and some of her sensory needs, but yeah, she does attend therapy. And after that, this whole experience started to kind of get overwhelming for me, and just her the constant worry that she would fall sick or stuff like that started getting to me. So we took towards the end of her first year at school, we took time off and visited our family back home, and that helped us a lot in terms of her social anxiety. She was around so many people that she started getting better with being okay to be around a bigger crowd. And then we came back after that, and we kind of had this idea in our head that if the next school year doesn't go as somewhat as we planned, then we might wrap up and go back home, because we have a fair amount of support, at least with the people we are close to back home are very supportive. So we did continue therapy in India when she was there for 3 months. Surprisingly, we were able to quickly find resources for her there as well. So we did that, and we came back with kind of like a mindset that, if we are still struggling at the end of the next school year, we'll probably pack everything, wrap up, and go back home. But luckily, pulled through, we were able to pull through as parents for her. And she had a decent school year. Like she was in a preschool 3-year-olds class this year. So that went well. So probably. And then somewhere in the middle of that, we started figuring out that, we need to get her medical diagnosis as well, so that we can add ABA to her current set of therapy that she's already attending. So then we went ahead and did all of that, and we just got her diagnosis back. Hopefully, we'll start ABA soon. So that is like kind of our gist of our journey so far.
So you said something interesting, like you would prefer to go back home because of the support. So a lot of people consider foreign countries like the United States and other places to have more accommodations for special needs.
Yes.
And yet you would prefer to go back home because that's where you find more support. So talk to me more about what is the lack that you're feeling here? What is the lack of support?
I would say that the day to day, yeah, and my husband is part of a joint family back home. So we kind of live with his brother and his wife and kids. There are just a lot more bodies. Like, even if I don't have to watch my child for half an hour straight, I don't have to worry. I know somebody else might be watching her, somebody who loves her almost as much as we do. So that kind of, I would say, a safety net. I mean, when we went back to India for that 3-month break, we went with zero expectations. We went assuming that, we only would be kind of handling her. And then I twisted my leg and I was kind of on bed rest for a very long time. So then the other people rallied around us. They took care of her to the point that the kid wouldn't even need me for an entire day. She wouldn't be bothered if she's not seen me. So that was very interesting to watch and kind of feel safe that, we have this, if not anything else. And I know services here are better. Acceptance outside of the country is a lot better. Probably, like I said, the people who matter to us back home on both sides of our family are very accepting of whatever we have done so far in our journey and whatever decisions we are taking. So that is like, probably it's out of love that they are like that to us. And that's kind of one of the very strong. And honestly speaking, she's our only child. She doesn't have siblings. So as she grows up, if we feel like, she would thrive better as a young adult back home, we will go back.
So you use words like accepting, strong, safety net, etc. when you were trying to describe your family back home, right? But once you received, as in when you got that diagnosis, did you have hesitation to share the news with family, thinking that they might react in a certain way? And once that information has been shared, now you're using the word as safety net, like they're a very strong support system for you.
Yeah.
But prior to that, what was going through your mind prior to sharing this news? Were you hesitant at all?
No, actually. But after sharing, there was one person who's very close to me who kind of just asked me, is her IQ that low? And it took me a couple of seconds to kind of reel myself back in from kind of going to a sad spot and come back and tell that no, this was not an IQ test, okay, and explain what the whole diagnosis kind of covered. And it did make me a little sad, but then I was able to kind of, I don't know how to, yeah, I do understand that it is more difficult, and I know I haven't dealt with society in general in India when it comes to my daughter's diagnosis, but I feel like they aren't a factor to my day to day. If the people who are living with me and who I interact with on a daily basis are kind of a determining factor. That is why I'm not too worried about kind of living with family. I'm not sure if I answered your question properly.
No, you did. So you're telling me that prior to sharing, you were not hesitant
No.
at all, especially with people whom you were close with.
Yeah, I wasn't. No,
Yeah.
not at all,
But
actually.
you also spoke about how this person who was very close to you completely misunderstood what it is to be on the spectrum, right? Do you face that a lot? That just the lack of understanding with what is neurodivergent?
Yes. I mean, this is even before my daughter was diagnosed. When we were considering the medical diagnosis, I had a very close friend kind of reach out to me and ask me why I'm using the word autism, as if, it was not something that I should say about my daughter. And I have been told multiple times, but she doesn't look like she has autism, because if you see her outside, she's a very happy, cheerful child just playing around. So that is something I still struggle to kind of let go of, that sinking feeling when I see some of my close friends say that to me. So, but then, like I said again, none of them are there every day when we struggle from morning to night, or when days are rough and we have to kind of live through a meltdown and maybe learn from that meltdown and work through what we need to do next for our kid. None of them are a factor, and that is something my husband pointed out to me, that they don't, honestly speaking, matter in any of our daily life that we live. So we should try and not let that get to us.
So, what changes would you consider um, seeing in order for you to feel that comfort here, living in Minneapolis? What could possibly make you change your mind?
Changes.
Is it more community support? Is it
Yes.
more? And when we talk about community support, how does that look? Right, so we constantly talk about the struggle of the child, but the parents also struggle, go
Yes.
through a whole lot,
Yes.
right? So, what can the community do to show that support and be supportive towards the child as well as to someone like you who is a parent?
I can answer this only from my perspectives, because this is what I need. I cherish my friends who check in on me, if not daily, at least once a week, or even once in 2 weeks. So, just what's going on. It doesn't have to do anything with my daughter, because they know that we are struggling as is, right? So, just once in a blue moon checking in and what's going on, how are you doing, and stuff like that. Because I feel like it's a lot less here compared to back home. And maybe talking to and finding people who are probably within the South Asian community who are kind of struggling or living with kids or young adults who are on the spectrum or who are neuroatypical. Because I kind of initially, none of my friends could relate to what we were going through. And then through the school district, they had this parenting class where I would meet a bunch of parents, and a lot of those sessions when we would have our parent meet, one of us would usually cry during all of those sessions, and the rest of us kind of understood. So that was a crew that really got each other, that most of us are exhausted and drained at the end of the day with our kids for different reasons. And I recently was talking in my most recent class, there was one parent who said that after we put our kid to sleep, we have to kind of go over the entire day and play detective to try to figure out what we can do so that we can help our kid the next time he or she has a meltdown. And all of us nodded, because we all understood that we have done that at some point in time, or rather, we do that every day or maybe every week. So, asking questions, checking in with your friends who have kids who are having difficulty, and just say that, I'm there if you want to talk. I saw something on social media where someone said that, if your friend is going through a hard time, they kind of have this thing where they reach out and say, I need 8 minutes. So it's like, I need a little bit of time to talk. So that is all that I personally need. And every child is different, so every parent's needs are different. But I think all of us parents, especially parents of kids who are neurodivergent, are exhausted because we are shuttling them back and forth through therapy, doing a bunch of things, trying to get them to eat properly and get a full night's sleep properly, and then maybe kind of trying to figure out how we can work through all of their meltdowns and try to make things easier for them, what tools we can provide them, navigating the medical system, all of that. And for me, the hardest thing is probably evaluations, where you have to kind of keep taking no for a bunch of things that you know that a kid that age should be able to do. That is like one of the hardest things for me. So after an evaluation, usually I am extremely drained, and I kind of talk to a couple of my friends where I tell them, I just got done with this evaluation and I don't have energy for anything right now. So every parent would have something that literally drains their entire being. So maybe finding that out and just telling them that, I'm here if you need anything. That is probably the best thing to do.
So being empathetic, understanding,
Yeah.
and being as supportive as
Yeah,
you
and
can be.
support can look very different for different people. So just figuring out what is the kind of support that they need and providing that. Or maybe if you're not able to, just being open about it that, I cannot do this. So then you can, because we have walked away from friendships and connections because it just didn't serve us at some point. It's hurtful and heartbreaking, but we do that. We say we have to.
So you mentioned that you walked away from friendships and relationships, and that's a theme that has repeatedly come forth. Why do you think that is happening? Is it a complete lack of understanding?
Yes, that is.
Not knowing how to deal with a situation? Or what could be the reason behind some of those relationships not working out?
Lack of understanding and the fact that being neurodivergent is considered to be a taboo, and then they kind of talk to someone like me who is very open, and they kind of are uncomfortable to talk about it and uncomfortable to accept that, okay, our kid might be an autistic child. So they wouldn't want us to use words like autism and things like that. So then I felt like, okay, I do not want to be in a place where I share my daily stuff with this person who kind of doesn't seem to want to accept it themselves. So without, and I am someone who kind of will not yell or scream. I would prefer to kind of take time apart. And if it has to, if that friendship still will work out after that, then maybe it's worth holding on.
So I genuinely hope that through the show, through the Saath community, you do get the support and the empathy that you're looking for. That makes me come to the show. You're playing one of the leads.
Yes.
You're telling a very similar story as to what is happening in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sharing your own journey, right? And it is not an easy thing to do, and you're still doing it. Mm-hmm. That means there is some motivation, there is a drive behind that decision, right? Talk to me about that.
So when I originally joined Saath this year, like I said in the beginning, it was like finally I decided to, we kind of got a lot of things in rhythm with my daughter. Like we know now what we have to do next, and we are not scampering around for information as much as we were when we began this journey. So we kind of decided to, because like I said, it's emotionally draining. So dance is something I've always enjoyed. So I joined Saath hoping to have fun and maybe making more friends. And I remember the first day when I walked in, right after the audition, I spoke to them and I said, you know what, if I do this year, my daughter will be coming for a lot of the rehearsals because we haven't found a sitter yet. And this is our situation. And that is when we were in the middle of a diagnosis and we knew. So I said she might have autism, so she does have meltdowns sometimes. And I have not I wouldn't say I've never seen people be so accepting, but I've known this, so I've known this bunch before, so I knew that I can very freely talk about our situation and figure out a way in which I can still do this or participate a little bit or maybe not, or whatever. We can figure it out. And that was kind of like the day I knew that this year I'll probably be part of the show for sure, because I wanted to do this for quite some time. So, I mean, that first conversation with Divya and Madhu kind of put me at ease, like, okay, I can bring her around. Maybe she'll also enjoy herself, and I'll also end up doing something that I really enjoy. And when I was told that neurodivergence was kind of the theme this year, initially I was very nervous because I was not sure if I would be able to live up to the expectations of the character, and I kind of didn't want to break down on stage and things like that. But then Divya was, I would say, she has more faith in me than I do in myself. So even though I was a little bit reluctant, I was like, okay, maybe this might be cathartic for me, and I would be able to process a lot of my own emotions through this and come out feeling a lot more at ease within myself after the entire experience and the end of the show, probably.
That's beautiful that you said it, that you believe that this can help process
Yeah.
what you are.
Yeah, that is
going
partly
on. It's a
because
self-expression.
yeah, that is partly the reason why I kind of didn't push back and say, no, I cannot do this part. I thought maybe I might cry during rehearsals, but then after the whole thing is over and done, I might not be that sad with our situation as I am right now.
So it's very obvious that you're kind of doing this for yourself, right? You're not doing this for anybody else but for you.
Yeah.
However, you did speak about some of the friends and the relationships that were lost, right? Many people might come to see the show.
Yeah.
Some of these people might also come and see the show.
Yeah.
What message do you want to give to them?
To the people who we are not too close to right now.
Right. Or people who have struggled with acceptance and people who the relationships have somewhat fallen apart after this.
I mean, this is something I kind of say in general, and it has nothing to do with my daughter being neuroatypical. I just feel like people, I mean, I think I've said this in the past to some of my other close friends and family members. I would rather you talk to me than talk about me. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you want to offer help or want to tell me that, you know what, I cannot be in your life right now, I cannot deal with this right now, say that to my face instead of behind my back to a bunch of people. Then it anyways what gets around, you come to know stuff. So I'd rather have people say it to me than behind my back. So that is all I would say.
Understand. What is one of the things that do you think that this is going to motivate other people to come forward and talk about the struggles that people are facing? If there are multiple people who are going through very similar situations in life, is just having the sense of community, multiple people bonding over and sharing what they experience is itself is a huge support system. So do you think you showing the courage of coming and playing the lead and sharing your story would encourage other South Asian men and women to come forward and talk about this as well?
I hope it does actually, because the kind of understanding a parent who is raising a child who is neurodivergent has requires rather, I think only a parent who's raising another neurodivergent child would understand me, and I would take conversations with that parent over a parent who has a neurotypical child on any given day. So when people who have kids who are neuroatypical and if they come out and want to have conversations, I think that would be the best thing ever, because the kind of relief you get from sharing your experience with someone who has been in somewhat of a similar situation is probably next level. And I have spoken to fellow parents who are kind of struggling with kids who are in the special ed program, but none of them have been South Asian families. So I would actually love to even interact with parents who are in a similar situation, because we are not raising our child in a country we grew up in. Like most of us grew up in India or some other South Asian country, and the schooling system is different, the medical system is different. So that kind of information initially when we started out we did not have. And the first leg of people you reach out to is usually within your community. Like you reach out to your South Asian friends, and from there when you realize no one knows anything here, then you kind of start reaching out outside of that net. So the fact that you have friends in the South Asian community who have been through similar struggles and situations kind of is more beneficial than anything.
One of the last questions, what are a couple of things that people can do, whether it be in Saath or like any other close group of people, as a community, as a group of people, some things that we can do to make your life easier, as well as show more understanding towards your situation?
Keep in touch, because there are days or weeks sometimes we feel like I mentioned earlier, like evaluations are when am at my worst personally. Like my emotions are at their lowest when I am filling out her evaluations. So maybe just reaching out, or maybe being comfortable enough with the person that me or the other parent or whoever is able to reach out to you and say, okay, I need to talk or I need a hug. I have this friend who we kind of meet only once in 2 or 3 months, because she raises 2 kids who are under 5. So they are a handful, and I have one kid who is a handful. So we meet once for coffee. Most of the conversations are us just kind of verbally dumping whatever we have been doing. And we both go back home feeling relieved after that. And even though she doesn't raise a neuroatypical child, she has 2 kids. She's willing to listen to everything that I have to say and kind of ask me questions that, what do you want to do next? What are you planning to do for yourself? So, questions like that without being judgmental. That is what we need. And hugs help. So, I'll take hugs any day.
So, last question. As someone who has gone through the diagnosis, struggled with it, still coming to terms with it, and yet showing the courage to share that story with a large group of people, right? Through a performance, through an art performance, what do you have to share with someone who is going through a very similar situation?
I would say that yes, it is tiring, it is draining, and it is difficult, but it does get better. That is something I would say. Like where we were a year and a half ago and where we are now, I kind of know that it's a long journey, but I know that we can get through it. And this is not coming just from me. I have heard this from parents who are parents of young adults. Like when I used to take my daughter for therapy, and we used to sit at the therapy center, and me and a parent who has another 3-4 year old who kind of had a speech delay, and we were talking, and there was a third parent who chimed in and said that she has a young adult who's attending college now, and that kind of gave both of us so much of relief that okay, yeah, our kids will get there someday. So yeah, it does get better. It's too early for me to say that, honestly speaking, because my kid is too little. But yes, I can say that a year and a half ago we were really struggling, and now we kind of are in a better place. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to navigate this journey from here on much better.
Alright. Thank you, Patty.
I do ramble, so I don't know if I made sense.
No, you made a lot of sense. No, I think that was beautiful. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you a
Yeah,
hug.
I'll give you a hug.
You did great.